Windows Server System Administration. Welcome back everybody. I'm Prakash Pradhan, your trainer for this series. So in today's topic, we're going to talk about the group policy management. This is part 1. As a part of system administrator in any organization, their most commonly used role in day-to-day activities of the organization in terms of IT is actually to look after the group policy management, because this is the only option or this is the only feature that we are going to use mostly. I'm not saying group policy is the only feature that we're going to implement in our network infrastructure, but most commonly you set of rules, the policies that's been deployed only by using the group policy management. Like example, deploying the policy for the users, deploying the policy for your any kind of your machines that might be in terms of your computer system. Okay, that means in short, group policy is nothing. This is simply hierarchical infrastructure that allows the system administrator to define the policies either for the user or for the computer system. So without wasting much time, so let's see practically what is your group policy management. Okay, where does it exist? When we set any group policy rule, where it goes, what are the types. So in detail we're going to see in this series. So I guess this topic is the among many other, this is the longest one, so we're going to have at least 3 to 4 series over here containing the discussion or the detailed information about your group policy management, since it's a part 1. So when I go to my group policy management, in fact I wanted to show you first users and computers first. So let's go over here. Do not be in panic, see step by step. Okay, now if I go to my Active Directory users and computers, so these are the organizational unit, and about the organizational unit we have already discussed in our previous video. So if you have not gone through that, so I suggest you to go through that because it will add something to your knowledge. Now when I create my domain controller, that means when I promote the server file operating system into my domain controller, after that it's going to create so many containers over here. That means all these OUs are container, that's already explained. So inside this container, we're going to have certain objects. So if we wanted to set any policy, any set of rules inside this container, we have to take the help of our group policy management. Of course, some of the these containers are created by default, which we are not going to use it, but maximum we create ourselves. We don't use from there. So if I come to my group policy management console over here, if you notice, there are commonly 2 policies over here. These 2 were previously created, like you have done for your printer server, printer testing. So I'm going to delete it all. Okay, so I'm going to delete this one. Okay, now by default, when you come to the group policy management console after promoting your server operating system as the domain controller, it gives you 2 policies over here. This is the default domain controllers policy. This is the domain policy. Now if you have a look over here, default domain policy is here. This is just a shortcut icon actually. The link is actually over here. This is some sort of redirection. If you notice over here, it's a kind of redirection. So when we see the set of or the number of containers over here in terms of your group policy management, there is a hierarchical flow actually. That means if I deploy any policy at the top level, it's going to flow below everyone until and unless there is a conflict. Of course, we're going to talk about that in future, but right now what we're going to see, when I create any group policy object, where it goes, or how will I make sure that the group policy object that reside in my sysball, whether that is older one, I need to remove it, whether I need it or not. As soon as you create any group policy object, the first question comes over here, where does it go now? Obviously, if I create one group policy over here, let's create it. Okay, there are 2 ways actually. First one, either you create and link here, create and link. Okay, otherwise we can simply create and link it later on. So right now, if I create one OU that is already created, and if I wanted to create a group policy object for this, in that case I can give a name, let's say finance. Now it's been linked, see over here. This is just a redirection only. So where does it go? Over here. But when I edit over here in this my group policy object, and it does certain changes or any policy that you deploy, of course we are going to learn or talk about that in future, but today we are going to understand what is this group policy object, where it goes. So as soon as I do any change, as soon as I deploy any set of policies, if I go to right click and edit it, or I can edit from here also, the thing is same. If I edit, what you need to understand, as soon as you open the group policy management console over here, there are two configurations. This you have to make it clear. If you see this portion, first one is the group policy for the computer configuration, and second policy is for the user configuration. What it means? That means if you are going to set any rules, any policy, any security policy, any security rules only to the machine base, that means the computer base, in that case you will have to set the policy over here, so that configuration does not go to the user. Okay, now if you wanted the policy that you want to follow to that user, whichever machine he or she logs in your network infrastructure, in that case you will have to set the policy on user configuration, because the policy set via group policy for the user configuration level will not affect to the computer configuration level, and the policy that is being deployed to the computer configuration level will not affect same as the user configuration over here. So you need to be careful where you want to deploy the policy, in computer or user. Now the next thing that I would like to show you, the most important thing is that whenever I create any policy over here, group policy, where does it go? If you remember, can you guess? I have already discussed or explained about this. When we create any group policy, there is a one particular address in your C drive where the group policy objects are placed. If your answer is right, that's fine. It goes in a sysvol folder. So let's have a look in a sysvol folder. You see, okay, this is straight coming over here. Normally it won't come. Now see, how will I explain? That means how will I get access over that sysvol folder? Of course, you can go to C drive, explore it and search it. But the best way I would like to give you, go to the ONC path, give your domain name, and okay, whatever these objects are shared, it is in your network, it will show you automatically. Remember, this printer was deployed last time, so it's showing over here. Now the sysvol folder is the most important folder where all your group policy objects are placed. Double click, this is your domain name. See, policies are here. All are these three policies. That means two policies are the default policy that comes along with the domain controller promotion, and the third object or the third policy that I see over here, that was recently created. That means this one, finance. Okay, this one. So if you wanted to edit, or if you wanted to know which policy is mine, in this case I would like to ask you this one, which policy is the latest policy. If you don't see over here this person, or you wanted to make sure whichever is the GUI value over here which you created, so in that case you go to the edit, right click your group policy over here, go to the properties, and it will show you the unique ID of that group policy. That means the last two characters are 0C. 0C is the finance created your group policy object. That means this object is yours, this one. So if I delete it, okay, what is saying? Are you sure you want to permanently delete this folder? Of course, yes. Now if I go back to my group policy management, see, only the link is here. Actually policy is being removed, but you never work this way because the entire management is being controlled by the group policy management console over here. So now the next, another thing that I would like to show you in this short video over here, when I go to the group policy and I right click, you see this, I would like to show you from here, block inheritance. Let's understand the meaning of this. Block inheritance means, let's say you're flowing the policy from this way, because normally policy flows top to bottom. Okay, now let's say some policy is deployed over here. If you are thinking what type of policy, it can be anything. Like example, you will not have access to your control panel, or you will not be able to change any of your wallpaper, anything, blah blah ABC, whatever the policies are given over here. Now that policy will flow to the bottom as well. Now if you want none of the other organizational unit or none of the other group policies should get affected by the policy of this domain controller, what you can do, right click and block inheritance. What it does now, it will block it. See, can you see this exclamation? That means the policy whatever you have set over here at the domain controllers level will not affect to the rest of your group policy object, and that is not a good practice, so you should never do that. Okay, now if I say that the default domain controllers policy I want always to be flowed till the bottom, because if I do the block inheritance, it's not going to flow at the bottom. But someone might have administrative privilege, you might have delegated that user, your assistant, admin, anyone, so they might be doing certain changes, and if you want, no one should be able to block the inheritance from the top. There is a one way, so right click and enforce. Now you'll see the lock over here. Did you notice here, golden lock? That means now the policy that is being flowed from the default domain controllers, or the default domain policy I mean to say, will flow over here. Whether you like it or not, it will flow. So now normally we do not use the default domain controllers policy in our environment wherever you work, because we do prefer to create our own organizational unit and we link it to the new domain controller, or I mean to say we intend to create a new group policy and link it into that OU, then we create the policies. So how do we create the policy? Just right click into that shortcut, edit. Okay, this was deleted last time, do you remember? This was deleted one, we deleted the finance one. Okay, now I'll create and link over here. So that's why I told you don't do from the sysvol. Okay, don't touch that folder, it's not saved. Okay, now right click, edit. Now it will allow you to edit. Now, so the same thing, there are two configurations. One is for the computer, one is for the user. Now, what happens now if there is no conflicting message? If there is, I mean to say, no conflicting policy flowing from top to bottom, whatever policy I am going to apply over here, that is going to enforce to all the objects, I mean to say users and the computers, whoever are under this HR group. That means, let's see, HR is here. There's a group. In this group, there may be some members. So HR1. So if I set the policy for that group policy object, okay, over here, that is going to get affected to this OU, and inside this OU there is a one group, inside the group there is one user. So you need to be careful whenever you set a policy. So I guess it was a bit informative to you, the flow, the way the group policy flows from top to bottom, how you can block the inheritance, how you can enforce the policy, and where your group policy management object it goes as soon as you create in your domain and environment. And if you believe this video was a bit fruitful and you got some idea in order to manage your group policy management, please do subscribe and like the video. Thank you.